Hi, I'm DG Wright, and this is the official channel of the BLS Coin Collectors Club, bringing you news and insight from the fascinating world of numismatics. If you enjoy my content, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hello everybody, today is the 5th of September, the anniversary of the Coin Club's founding in 1991. More recently, however, I've been working on building up a nice date run of florins, and that's what we're going to look at today. I live in the US now, and a lot of my coin collection is still in England, so I really have no idea what I actually have back there. So I'm building up date runs of coins here, and if they're duplicates, well, so be it. This florin, minted in sterling silver in 1849 at the Tower Hill Mint in London, I bought on eBay on the 1st of September this year, and it arrived today. 1849 was the first year of issue for the florin, with the face value of 2 shillings or 24 pennies. Being 1/10 of a pound sterling at the time, the florin was introduced as an early step towards decimalisation. The obverse depicts a young Queen Victoria, designed by William Wyon, while on the reverse, designed by William Dyce, 4 shields depicting the heraldic emblems of England, Scotland and Ireland are arranged cruciform, with a rose, thistle and shamrock in the angles. The original mintage of this coin was slightly over 400,000, so even to start with it was scarce, and the 1849 issue was extremely unpopular, as the inscription omitted the Queen's titles Dei Gratia, by the grace of God, and Fidei Defensor, Defender of the Faith. Due to this, it became known as the Godless and Graceless florin, and the coin was rapidly withdrawn, replaced in 1851 by the Gothic-style florin, which would be minted until 1887. This beautiful 1914 specimen, also minted in sterling silver, was the earliest florin in my collection until the 1849 coin arrived today. Minted at the Tower Hill Mint in London, this coin's obverse depicts the bust of King George V, designed by Bertram McKennell, while the reverse features shields depicting the emblems of England, Scotland and Ireland, a modified version of the original William Dyce and L.C. Wyon designs used for much of Victoria's reign. Unlike most coins of this vintage, this particular piece has had almost no circulation. In fact, it's hard to detect any signs of wear at all, and it may in fact be an uncirculated coin. The mintage figure for the 1914 florin is a little over 21 million, so it's a fairly common coin for the era. 1914 saw the outbreak of the First World War, following which silver coins became far more expensive to produce. This led to the debasement of silver coins in 1920. In 1920, owing to the increasing cost of silver and the financial costs of the First World War, the silver coinage of the UK was debased to 50% fineness. This 1921 florin is an example of the new silver-copper alloy that resulted. The design remains unchanged from the earlier sterling silver issues. The mintage for the 1921 issue is, however, far greater, approaching 35 million. I obtained this particular coin in a swap with a close friend in December 1991, and it has remained in my collection ever since. It was briefly stolen from me in 1992, but almost immediately recovered by the same friend that I originally got it from. As you can see, it is far more worn than the 1914 specimen, likely circulating all the way up until the 1950s. A recent acquisition that I bought on eBay on the 18th of August this year, this 1922 florin is also heavily worn and has obviously been extensively circulated. The 1922 florin has a lower mintage than the previous year, not quite 24 million, but is made of the same silver-copper alloy and features the same design. Another recent addition to my collection, I bought this 1936 florin on eBay on the 21st of August this year. The obverse shows the modified effigy of George V introduced in 1927, while on the reverse we see a new version of the previous design, this one by George Kruger Gray. Florin mintages had been declining significantly since 1924, and this year's mintage of a little under 10 million was actually high for the 1930s. This coin has also been heavily circulated, although not quite to the extent of the previous two. Moving on to the reign of George VI, this 1939 florin features on its obverse the single portrait the king would use for his entire reign. The artist was Thomas Humphrey Paget. On the reverse we see the more botanical motifs that will persist on much of UK coinage up until the 1960s. with the crown rose of England flanked by the Scottish thistle and the Irish shamrock. Like the previous reign's last florins, the reverse was designed by George Kruger Gray. Florin mintage under George VI was significantly higher than during the last 12 years of his father's reign, and the 1939 coins are no exception, with nearly 21 million struck. This particular specimen I bought on eBay on the 19th of August. This 1941 florin, bought on the 20th of August, was struck at the height of the Second World War. Despite this, the mintage remains impressively high. More than 24 million were issued this year. The design remains the same and will, with minor changes, persist until 1951. These coins seem to often be found in decent condition, probably due to their only being in circulation a few years before silver coins ceased minting after 1946. These three coins, bought on eBay from the 18th to the 20th of August, take us through the end of the Second World War and almost to the end of circulating silver coinage in the UK. They are all in better condition than their post-1946 counterparts usually appear in, likely because of the brevity of their circulation. The last circulation silver coins in the UK were struck in 1946. Despite the depredations of the war, these coins were struck in large numbers and are still quite common now. All have a mintage of over 25 million. Due to the war and rising costs, silver was replaced in circulation UK coinage by a cupro-nickel alloy, 75% copper and 25% nickel, in 1947. These cupro-nickel florins would continue to circulate until their decimal counterpart, the 10p, was replaced by a smaller variant in 1992. Demonetized in June 1993, they had a circulation of over 40 years, and often turn up far more worn than their late silver predecessors. This one I bought on the 14th of August this year. Although collecting these circulating florins was a major focus of the Coin Club during 1992 and early 1993, these coins retain the existing designs and mintage levels, and as such are still common coins now. Of these three 1951 florins, I bought the best specimen on the 16th of August this year. The other two I've had in my collection since the 1990s, probably since 1992 or 93 when florins were demonetized. 1951 was the last date for which George VI florins exist. None were struck dated 1952 as the king died early in the year, although some denominations were issued with that date. As with florins of 1949 and 1950, the reverse design has been adjusted slightly due to the removal of Imp, Emperor of India, from the king's titles. The legend on the reverse is larger and more spread out. The mintage remains high at over 27 million. Elizabeth II became Queen in February of 1952, but the first coins depicting her were issued the following year. This coin, part of a lot of 103 British coins I bought on the 5th of May this year, depicts the young Queen's portrait on the obverse, designed by Mary Gillick. The reverse, designed by Cecil Thomas and Edgar Fuller, shows the English rose in the centre, surrounded by the thistles of Scotland, the leeks of Wales and the shamrocks of Ireland. The 1953 florins mintage is relatively low for the period at slightly under 12 million. This would be the last year the monarch's titles included the legend Brit Omne, all the Britons, as the number of former British colonies gaining independence meant that the Queen no longer ruled over all the world's Britons. Bought on 11th of August this year, this 1954 florin has lost Brit Omne, all the Britons, from the Queen's titles on the obverse. At a still relatively low mintage for the time, a shade over 13 million, 1954 florins, even before demonetisation, were less often encountered in circulation than many other dates. The better grade coin of these two I bought on the 14th of August. These 1958 florins have by far the lowest mintage of the entire reign at less than 10 million, and in fact are the lowest mintage florins of any year after 1938. They retain the 1954 obverse and 1953 reverse, which will continue until the last issue of florins in 1967. Purchased on the 26th of August this year, this 1963 florin is fairly heavily worn considering its relatively recent date. However, it did circulate for roughly 30 years before demonetization. Many of the 1960s series of florins have the highest mintage of any, and 1963 is no exception at over 26 million. The florin as 1/10 of a pound was originally conceived as an early step towards decimalisation, and now, over a century after the coin's introduction, the decimalisation movement was gaining steam. The better of these two coins, a specimen which has had only very light circulation, I bought on the 14th of August. 1964 mintage is somewhat lower than other years in the 1960s series, but at over 16 million still leaves us with a very commonly encountered coin. The following year, 1965, would be the year in which decimalisation was firmly decided upon by the UK government. This, the most recently struck, and before the 1849 example, the most recently obtained florin in my collection, was bought on the 26th of August. The 1966 coin has the highest mintage figures of any florin at around 84 million, even higher than that of 1967. Preparations for decimalisation were in full swing by now, along with plans for the new site for the Royal Mint, Florins in Wales. The florin would be superseded by the new decimal 10pence in 1968. The two coins would circulate side by side until June of 1993, however. Coin Club records show a focus on the collecting of florins from December of 1991 onwards until their demonetisation. So that was my current collection of florins. I do have more on the way though, so stay tuned for an update. I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, please leave us a comment and a like, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button.